board meeting on December 14th, 2020. This is in accordance with Public Act 228, which means we can allowed to have this meeting virtually. This meeting of the Mount Pleasant Public School Board of Education is a meeting conducted in public, but it is not a meeting of the public. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. The purpose of today's meeting is to conduct regular business that requires action by the board. These items may include those discussed at previous meetings or presented to the board for discussion this evening. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. John, roll call, please.
William Pengel.
Here.
Amy Bond.
Here.
Courtney Stegman. Brenda McQueen.
Here.
John Mazurkovich here. Sheila Murphy.
Here.
Tim Odeker.
Here. Thank you, John. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda itself. I have not heard anything from any board members. Is there any board members who would like to do any modifications to the agenda? Not hearing anything, we will go on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Student Board of Education representative. This evening, we will not be having any presentation by the Student Board representative. So the next item on the agenda is the Superintendent's report. Jen.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. We wanted to start out this meeting by acknowledging and thanking both Brandon McQueen and John Mazurkovich, as tonight will be their last meeting with the board. We do have a plaque that Tim, Amy, and I will be delivering to you yet this week to thank you and to honor and recognize your service to our school district. So we're just very grateful for the time and the commitment that you've given to our schools, to the students in our districts, and to our staff. So we wanted to make sure to take this opportunity to publicly thank you for your commitment to our district.
Thank you both very much. Brandon, you've been on for what, 12 years?
11.
11 years. That's quite a commitment. And John, you've been the best pitch hitter I think we've ever had. You've been filling in when we need it the most. Thank you both very, very much. You've been great voices for the community.
Absolutely. So the next item under my report is just to make sure that all the board members are aware that in your packet this evening, there is a proposed calendar for our 2021 meeting schedule. There's also a schedule for the calendar of reports that will come before the board, and then the descriptions of all of the responsibilities. On January 4th at 6 o'clock, we will have our annual organizational meeting. At that meeting, we will appoint, you will elect board officers, and then we will appoint a variety of different board members to serve in different positions and different committees that we have that serve different areas of the school district and also throughout our community. So we'll do that. We will approve the tentative calendar for the 2021 school year. And then at 6:30, we'll move into our regular meeting on January 4th. Right now, we do not have the authority to meet virtually. That is something that there are two different pieces of proposed legislative action in Lansing that we hope will get approved. There is also an item to be discussed on the slate of business for the Isabella County Commissioners tomorrow night, and they may take the appropriate steps that would allow us to continue meeting virtually. So that would be our hope, that we would be able to continue to meet in the format that we've used for the last several months. And as soon as I have that information that says that we can do that, I will let you know right away. But for now, if nothing changes, we will have to meet face-to-face in the boardroom at 6 o'clock on Monday, January 4th. So I don't know, Tim, if there's anything you wanted to add about the appointment of officer, or I'm sorry, the election of officers and the appointment of committee positions.
Nope, just board members be thinking through, and we're going to try to connect up. And if you could give a heads up to myself or Amy as vice president, that would be helpful, so we can make the meeting move smoothly. But otherwise, thank you. That's everything.
Mhm. And I think the description sheet that Deb has prepared does a nice job of describing the wide variety of positions that serve different groups within our district and then also across the community as well. So certainly if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to reach out to me as well. The next item under my report is the revised budget appropriation presentation from Ginger. Ginger, I do have your presentation pulled up. Do you want me to man it for you?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
So we have for you tonight the December budget revision. I know this is a big item that a lot of people want to see because it has changed so drastically since when we had to approve this budget back in June. The new year budget that we had to approve in June without knowing any details on how to count our student count, what foundation allowance we were going to have, anything. We predicted spending into fund balance $3.1 million based on the assumptions that the state and a lot of our different agencies that we follow recommended. Since then, we have had our fall pupil count. We originally budgeted to be down 4% per pupil reduction. Since then, there's been a change in how our pupil count is calculated. We're this year allowed to use a super blend is what we'll call it. And in a typical year, our blended count is 10% of the previous spring count and 90% of the current year fall count. This year, we're allowed to take 75% of last year's blended count, the 19-20 school year blended count, and we only need to use 25% of this year's blended count. So it's a big complicated formula, but when all is said and done, using the new super blend formula, we are estimated to be down about 20 FTE from last year's blended count. Those are unaudited figures. So a lot of adjustments still will probably come in with that, but the difference in what we originally budgeted of the 4% per pupil reduction and the new super blend number being down, we're only down 19.7 FTE. Based on the foundation allowance that we use for our June budget is an increase to our budget of $841,000. And I mentioned the foundation allowance. In that June budget, we also budgeted a decrease in our per pupil foundation allowance of $1,300. That didn't end up happening. We actually have a flat foundation allowance this year. So we have the same $8,111 per pupil as we had in the 19-20 school year. So with the new blended count per pupil amount that we have with our new formula, times the difference, the $1,300 that we estimated being down, we also get to add back in almost $4.5 million back into our fund balance, or back into our budget. For the 19-20 school year, we also received a $223,000 one-time per pupil increase. And then we know one of the first things that we did as soon as we found out that the foundation allowance wasn't going to be cut what we predicted was we restored the 4% payroll reduction that everybody across the board took. Almost everybody across the board took. There was a couple 5% and a 6% reduction. Those were restored also. There was one group that did not negotiate the 4% in, but they did negotiate a freeze in steps. So I added those steps back into the budget as well. All of those changes, all of the moves ins and moves outs through about mid-November, any retirements we knew, those were all accounted for in that additional expense of the budget, or that decrease you see right there, that $937,000 negative number, was what expenses that we had to add back into the budget with all of those changes in and out since the June budget, New Year budget was adopted. And then the insurance number, we did not know in June what our new numbers would be for like dental, vision, life, long-term disability, that type of thing. So that number is the adjustments for all of those for the school year now that we know those figures. If you remember last year, we decreased the dual enrollment budget at the very end of the year. I restored that. Now we do still have students continuing to enroll in our local colleges. I had to increase the budget for athletics. I think you'll see this again when we do our budget revision in June. We're not able to charge admission or sports passes and get that revenue in that we would typically get from a lot of our games. So the general fund will have to help support our athletic programs that are allowed to run more this year than in previous years. The COVID line item, we know we received a lot of money through the CARES Act grant, 4 different CARES Act grants actually. And most of that funding is done. It runs out December 30th of this year. So just in a couple weeks. I left a buffer in our budget for any continuing expenditures we may have for PPEs. We know we have an additional cost for our Grand Rapids Building Services, our custodial company that is doing extra cleaning and disinfecting. Right now, that extra cost is coming out of the CARES Act grant, but again, that spending has to be done December 30th. So I left a little buffer in the budget for any extended COVID costs, knowing that if we don't need that, that budget line item will go away. It won't just get distributed somewhere else. And then the CARES Act, when we approved the budget back in June, we knew we were getting at least an estimated $586,000 in revenue in one of the 4 CARES Act grants that we did end up receiving. We budgeted that revenue, but didn't budget any offsetting expenditures against it in June. So I had to take that revenue back out and make my revenue and my expenditures match. So they equal out to 0 basically at the end of the year. So when all of that's said and done, all of those moves were made, we're expected now to contribute back to our fund balance $461,000 at the end of the year. Looking at our ending usable fund balance, this is pretty much everything in our fund balance minus like the inventory, the prepaid expenditures, those types of things that are already spent. The usable fund balance plus what we're expected to contribute back at the end of the year brings us a projected ending fund balance of $6 million. Based on a $46 million budget, that's a 13.4% fund balance, which is a lot better than what we predicted back in June. I know we had predicted bringing that down to 5% back in June. So we're looking much better. We did not get the huge per pupil foundation allowance decrease that we thought we were going to get. And we did not lose as many students as we thought because we were allowed to use that new super blend. If we had to use our regular blended count formula, we would be down 79 FTE instead of 19.7. So that was a huge help to us with that change in the law. I know I went through that probably kind of quickly. It's a lot of numbers. Please let me know what questions I can help answer for you.
Ginger, can you tell me what FTE stands for?
Yes, it's a full-time equivalent. So when we count our students, it's not butts and seats. If they're only there for 80% of the day, we can only count them for 0.8 of an FTE.
Okay, and do we think we'd be able to use that super blend again in the next school year? Or is that where we have no clue?
It would take another act of law to continue that, I believe. It's just
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So for the buffer, you said you built in a buffer for any extended COVID expenses.
Yes.
How big is that? I don't know if I saw that on.
It's that $300,000
Okay.
line item.
All right. And if we don't use that, that also goes back to the fund balance?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I just got to say this is excellent news.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, and I think you guys did a fantastic job of planning for the worst, hoping for the best, and making sure that even at the worst case scenario, we're going to be all right. So I commend you.
Thank you.
And so the public better understands also, we always do amendment mid-year. This is our mid-year adjustment. Again, we don't run on a calendar year. We have a fiscal year, which is July 1st through June 30th. We will be doing another budget amendment near the end of the semester, end of the fiscal year, and so in June, to realign after all of the things that have been going on. We have a better understanding where those budgetary items are. So this is great news, considering we were sitting here not that many months ago, literally thinking that the school district was going to be collapsing under the weight of the debt. And so thank you. And thank you to your team for crunching all of those numbers. I mean, time and time again, because things kept changing. It's phenomenal that you've done all of that work. So the rest of the board knows this will be coming for a vote to modify our current budget to better align with the knowledge of the information that Ginger has already shown us. So the public knows it's a formula that is a form letter, let's say, that is aligned to state standards. So it looks slightly different. The board likes it this way because we can better understand the impacts. It makes more connections to where the district is spending the money, so we can align to our mission and our vision of where the dollars are going. But it's interesting to see a lot of our dollars are going to safety and health. So, and that's where they need to be going. Ginger, thank you. Does any board members have any other questions? Thank you. Jen, back to you.
Yep. We'll keep moving on. The next item under my report is a PSC update with Linda.
Good evening, everyone. PSC has remained very busy this year, even though we're virtual. We've had a unique situation as we just hired our PSC chair, Erin King, to be the principal at McGuire. She has graciously agreed to continue to do that, kind of do both roles during this transition, so that we can finish up this unique year, and then we will select a new PSC chair for the 21-22 school year. We do welcome Allison Carr as a new PSC representative. Allison teaches second grade at Bowles Elementary. We are excited that we are going to be able to extend the Journeys curriculum that the board approved about 2 years ago. That's our K-5 program, and we recently piloted the DK extension of that program, and it's called the Big Day program. And so for a very economical cost that we have with some of our curriculum dollars, we're able to get that program in our 3 DK buildings. So we're excited to make that purchase to put to use in the new year. This year, our PSC cycle has World Studies under examination, and we are bringing in Dave Johnson from the Wexford Misaki ISD, and he's going to lead a virtual staff meeting at both the high school and the elementary. I actually should say a virtual department meeting, secondary staff, and then separately with the elementary staff. He's been actively involved in the Open Book project, and these are virtual books that are constantly updated. So they're always relevant, they're always with the most available with the most current information. And now that we've added so many devices to each of our schools, this may be a very appealing option for our teachers to consider for updating our social studies materials. PSC has also recently discussed the accelerated math program, the consent form, and just reflecting on making sure that parents realize that the grade point average begins for those students. If they take honors algebra in 8th grade, that does affect their high school GPA. We want to make sure parents are well aware of that. And as part of that discussion, we also updated the world languages consent form so that parents are also aware that when students take French and Spanish or German, if we offer that does become a part of their high school GPA. Then as an extension of that discussion, PSC will also be discussing the fact that at the middle school, the Spanish and French electives that we are offering this year that do count as high school GPA have all been taught virtually this year. And so that's kind of a unique twist to those high school GPA, the beginning of the high school GPA for those students. So we are discussing the credit, no credit option with the department. We met with Lisa Davis, who is the head of the World Languages Department, and we will continue to discuss this further at our next PSC meeting. And finally, I would like to introduce Darby Weaver. Darby has led the most recent Secondary Business Technology Task Force, And at the end of the presentation, I have inserted a board memo that you can choose to approve tonight, or it can certainly wait until January 4th. There's nothing that pressing that can't wait if you have questions. So, and although this doesn't directly fit into PSC, the discussion of technology reminded me that we have recently refurbished many teacher workstations with dual monitors, and it has really helped our teachers want to come to their classroom to do their work during this unique time because the technology is excellent. So they don't have to have their Chromebook and their desktop and their hover cam. We just recently updated lots of things and they're very happy. We've had lots of thank yous from our teaching staff after Joe and probably Joyce too have zipped around all the buildings and updated lots of our workstations. So I just wanted to mention that, and we'll let Darby take over with business and technology.
Darby, do you want me to share the PowerPoint, or do you want the control of the screen?
What do you prefer, Darby?
Okay. Oh, you can pull it up.
What do you prefer, Darby?
I can pull it up. I have it on my desk. Can you hear me, Jen? Yeah. Well, I can get started while she's pulling it up. So I am in charge, or was in charge, of the PSC task force for business and technology, and we started our work actually last November, meaning like over a year ago. And we had a couple of pauses in there with COVID work. So I'm going to walk you through some pieces of it, but there was some time in between there where we just took some time off, and we knew the board had a lot more bigger fish to fry other than, you know, business and technology for task force. And so we kind of held off on some things. But our PSC task force looked at instructional materials that are already being used at the secondary level for our computers classes and integrated tech at the high school and some business classes. And we spent some time, we had members of our task force, we had some elementary computers teachers, and then also secondary teachers who were part of it. And we spent our first part of our meetings really meeting with the elementary teachers to see the work that they did in the past, where they presented in 2019, they presented you with a DK5 computer spring presentation. And that is actually linked in here down a couple of slides with the summary of work. And they spent some time kind of getting us up to speed of the work that they had done so that we could start making our transition from work they did up to 5th grade, so that we weren't overlapping things once they got to 6th grade. So we needed to kind of shift some things. So we had also looked at a business management and marketing and tech presentation that was done in 2015-16. So we did some kind of background searching and getting ourselves up to speed with that with some of our first meetings. And you can keep scrolling, Jen, down. I'm down to summary of work. Our first meeting was November 25th, and at that time kind of delivered the charge, and we that's when the elementary shared their information with us, and we discussed ideas for our secondary work and kind of a plan for some professional days that we wanted to have as teams at the middle school and then the high school. So the middle school met and had a couple of professional days. And after we met as middle school, we met with the high school and shared with them the information that we had worked on. So then the high school again could take our information and start working on theirs, so that we were really consistent across the board and not having a lot of overlapping. We didn't want the same things taught in 8th grade as 9th grade, when we could just kind of build upon things versus you know, having to just have a lot of things repeated. So in March of last year, the high school met for their professional days and did some final information and shared that again with a wrap-up meeting with all of us at the secondary level, where we have some recommendations that we would like to share with you tonight. And I think that would lead to Linda's piece at the end. But in the middle school, we use a curriculum called 21 Things, and we made a couple of shifts based on that 5th grade and elementary presentation about certain topics that we wanted to either shift to a different grade or also maybe shift to a different semester or trimester, because we have some computer classes that run semester and some computer classes that run trimester. We also were shared a free curriculum last year from the RESD about a computer science principles course, and we talked to PSC about piloting that this year for one elective hour for 8th graders. And so we actually have been doing that this year, even in our cohort, COVID world. That's one class that we've been able to keep working on and using this free curriculum, and we've really enjoyed that. And then it's also kind of taken the 8th graders from just normal computers to kind of moving it up to more of the coding, but not the normal coding that all of the kids get, but a little more amped up, I guess, for the coding, and a lot of kids have enjoyed that. For the middle school, those are the only two things. We've just done some shifting in our pacing, and then also the computer science class. The high school, they would be continuing their business plan as normal, and the integrated technology course, they have a couple of things that they were suggesting that they change. They did a name change they wanted to do a name change from integrating technology to business tech. They wanted to add the 21st thing, computational thinking, to the high school curriculum. They also wanted to add a review of the 21 things that were given at the middle school level. So they're broken out. So 1 through 7 is done in 6th grade, 8 through 12 in 7th, and 13 through 20 in 8th. So they wanted to spend some time doing a review of that. They updated their career units, so they align with some of the new career readiness goals. They added a service learning component to each trimester, and then they also wanted a change in the course offering guide to state that kind of paragraph there. So the next are the pacing guides updated. We have the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and all it is again, those 21 things were shifted or changed for the numbers, but then they also, our past pacing guides didn't have the career models and the internet safety pieces in there, so we added those for pacing guides. And then we also added that computer science elective curriculum link there that's all free, and it's all kind of endorsed by Claire Gladman, RESD, and that's where it was shared from over a year ago. And then the business tech, which that's their new name. It was integrated tech if we approve this. And they added their service learning projects. There's a link there for what they wanted. And then they also have their kind of guides, pacing guides, where they added those career development model targets for business tech. So Linda's board approval memo is linked there. And then we also have a wish list, and most of the items on the wish list have already been able to have been done. And just remember, our wish list was from, last spring. And like the headphones is something we've been able to do. A lot of the microphones, so, like some of the upgrades, but the computer lab upgrade, of course, is a little bit maybe of a bigger of a project. But all of those things, we're not asking for any funding or any money for anything at all. These are just some things that we're going to continue to keep doing, like 2% grants for, or keep, seeing how we continue to progress in our technology just in our building. So that is all. Linda, did you want to pull up your memo or?
Sure, I think you summarized it basically. Whoops. So the main items that we would need the board to consider for approval would be the name change in the Mount Pleasant High School course offering guide from integrated tech to business technology, the approval of the adjusted pacing guides 6 through 12, and adding the computer science class that the middle school has piloted as an elective course offering for the middle school. I don't know if that's 8th grade, Darby. And the PSC purchase is a budget for 0. So that's good news.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question regarding the service learning projects for business tech, which is at the high school level. There's 3 different areas: combating hunger, helping our peers, and our community. Are they to be connected directly to business tech in some way, or are they just literally a service project that the students are doing, a community sport, or are they aligned to the curriculum that's being offered with the business tech?
I do believe that they are connecting it with their pacing with the business tech, with like activities that they're doing in the business tech, kind of going along with the service learning at the same time. So I don't think they're 2 individual, they're kind of together with some of the work that they're doing leads into some of the service learning projects.
Okay, so there's like different service projects, but project-driven learning that they're going to be doing some of the skills that they're learning in the business tech, but tied to those types of projects.
Yeah, I can find one here on the course guide, which is another link. I can see if I can find an exact example here.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, they look kind of random. I mean, they're great at projects, but just trying to figure out how they're connected to business tech.
Like some of the stuff, they have, spreadsheets that they were creating that can go along with some of the tasks that they're working on. So just trying to find exactly where those are in here. But I think those are some specific examples where they're looking up, or like the volunteering at the Isabella County, they could have like certain tools that are using for volunteering, or even filling out like volunteering paperwork, but online, and some pieces like that that can go along with that. So they did, when they talked about it, there were areas that they were making those connections. We can always ask for more clarification of that from the high school if you would like.
No, I was just wondering, just to try to make those connections, because this kind of, the way it was presented, it was just kind of off. So, but no, thank you. I think that would make sense, using those as projects for learning those business tech skills.
I think one of the things to remember with that course too is that that's often a course that is taken by 9th and 10th grade students, and so that some of those service components address leadership as well. So are the board members able to see the memo for that would have the recommendation? I wasn't able to open it in the presentation, but you all are able to see that, okay? Okay.
I do have an additional question. Do we have any information from the students currently piloting the 8th grade course on how it's going?
No, I have not gathered any information from them at this time. I can. It's been, as I said, kind of this has been on pause and not one of the, bigger pieces to the puzzle at the moment, but it is something we can get some feedback on. Ms. Russell does a really nice job at teaching this class and trying to amp up some of those computer skills as our kids move into, high school. But we can do a quick summary or survey for them if you'd like some information.
I was just curious on how the pilot was going.
Mm-hmm. It's in the future, it's more of an elective where the kids can select it or pick it. And this year, our intentions, of course, were that, they could all pick it, but it wasn't that 100% of the kids picked it due to cohort pieces and elective pieces. And so it's not 100% one of those that all the kids in there, picked that elective. So in the future, they of course would pick that elective. So it'd be something that was an interest to them.
That makes sense. Thanks, Darby.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Darby. And Darby, thank you to the team. So again, this has been presented this evening. We can either approve it tonight or we'll approve it on the January 4th meeting. Jen, do you have anything to add for the rest of your superintendent's report?
That is all for my report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. The next item on the agenda is the requested financial reports. Ginger.
Do you have those, Jen? Okay, thank you. The report tonight will be changing soon if you so choose to approve the budget amendment I brought to you earlier. But I'll still run through it quickly, and we can look at our numbers for the month ending November 2019 compared to 2020.
Ginger, you can go ahead. I'll pull it up here. I'm just having a bit of an issue.
Okay. For the general fund, our budget to actual was 24% this year compared to 18% last year. Again, that revenue for this report is higher because, well, it will be for both years, but higher because of the CARES Act money. The budget will change to include all of that CARES Act money with this December revision. Expenditures for the month of November are 30% this year compared to 27% of budget last year. For special service funds, athletics, these are self-sustaining sports. Revenue is at 0% this year compared to 9% last year. And that's the same for expenditures, 0% this year compared to 9% last year. For the Children's Learning Center, we're at 51% of revenue. Actual revenue received compared to budget this year compared to 46% last year. And expenditures are at 25% this year compared to 35% last year. Again, their revenue is a little higher because they also receive some CARES Act grants for the Children's Learning Center. For the nurse testing program, this is just a fund balance we're spending down. There will be no more revenue coming in, so it's at 0% across both years. Expenditures are at 1% compared to 0% last year. For the food service program, revenues are currently at 11% of budget compared to 27% last year, and expenditures are at 17% compared to 32% last year. That's a timing issue on money coming in. I do expect this to get much better. We have had many families utilizing our free breakfast and lunch, and that helps the district out a lot. So as those numbers keep going up, the revenue number will start looking better too. And for the school store, revenue is at 13% of budget this year compared to 63% last year, and expenditures are at 11% this year compared to 35% last year. For the treasurer's report for general fund, month ending November 30th, we had a cash balance on October 31st of $4.6 million. We had receipts in the month of November of $3.3 million and disbursements of $4 million. That brings us a balance on November 30th of $3.9 million. For the debt retirement fund on October 31st, we had a cash balance of $900,000, receipts in the month of November of $2,000, and no disbursements for November. That brings us a balance on November 30th of $915,000. And for the capital projects funds, on October 31st, we had a cash balance of $2.8 million. We had tiny amount of interest income, $100, and some disbursements of $6,000 in the month of November. That brings us a balance on November 30th of $2.8 million. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. The next item on the agenda is correspondence. I'm in the board packet, but also board members, please note you received these as soon as they came in. Is correspondence from Eric Roman, Heather Wisniewski, and Jacqueline Robier, and Kristen Newbacher. again, board members, you received this information when they came in because they're all digital, but they are now a part of the record of the board meeting. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda, there is the approval of the December 1, 2020 special meeting minutes, the December 1, 2020 special meeting minutes with closed session, and the financial approval of the bills in the amount of $1,521,027.64. Is there a motion to approve those three items under the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
John moved, Eileen seconded. Are there any further questions? Not hearing any. John, roll call, please.
William Pankel,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman,
Yes.
Brendan McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich, yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Odekirk.
Yes. Unanimous approval of that agenda, those items under the consent agenda. The next item on the agenda is new business. The first is retirement. Linda, Jen?
Good evening. We do have a mid-year retirement this year for the board to approve. Julie Maxon will be retiring on April 1st of 2021. Julie is a 1983 graduate of Mount Pleasant and has been a teacher here with us since 1989. The end of 2021 would wrap up almost 32 years of teaching in Mount Pleasant, teaching and coaching for the Oilers. We wish Julie all the best in her retirement, and we hope the board will accept her retirement with regret.
I motion that we do not accept it, but for those who don't know, Julie has had a huge impact on this district. Miles for Miracle driver's training. She's taught hundreds and hundreds of people how to drive and has taught our students how to contribute to our greater community by giving and supporting those who are in need, on top of being a great science teacher. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the retirement of Miss Julie Maxon?
So moved.
So moved.
I think Sheila got that, and then John is second, or Brandon got second.
And I just want to add in there, she was also my teacher as well.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Are there any further questions? John, roll call, please.
William Pankel,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman,
Yes.
Brendan McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich, yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Odekirk.
Yes. Again, Julie, thank you very much. This district and this community and family have really benefited from having you as their teacher and part of our community. So we look forward to what you're going to be doing next in the Mount Pleasant area. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is resignations. Linda.
Yes, we would like the board to please accept the resignation of speech teacher Sarah Stars and special education teacher Autumn Slusser.
Is there a motion to accept the recommendation for the resignation of Ms. Stars and Ms. Slusser?
So moved.
Second.
Again, that was Sheila and then Brandon. Any further questions? Thank you, John.
William Pankel,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman,
Yes.
Brendan McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich, yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Odekirk.
Yes, unanimous approval, and good luck on your next endeavors to Ms. Stars and Ms. Lesser. The next item is the summer tax levy resolution. Ginger.
Yes, this is an annual resolution we need to approve before the end of the calendar year, so this month. This resolution will allow us to levy half of our taxes in the summer and half in the winter in the city of Mount Pleasant only. This greatly helps our cash flow with some revenue coming in the summer to help us get through this time of year right now before the winter taxes start rolling in.
We have been doing this format for many years, and again, by law, we have to have this, and ironically, it is a resolution call, so John would have to do roll call anyways. But just so the public understands, it's just a legal requirement for us to do for taxation for the district to get the funds, part of the funds that the district operates under. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the approval of the 1/2 of the operational debt millage on property located within the city of Mount Pleasant?
So moved, Amy?
Second, Sheila?
Are there any further questions? John, roll call, please.
William Pangle,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman,
Yes.
Brenda McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich, yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Motorkirk.
Yes. Motion approved. Next item on the agenda is the revised budget appropriation resolution. Ginger will punt it back to you to just to recap.
Yeah, a general recap is this looks much better than the one I asked you to approve in June, now that we actually know numbers coming in from the state and our pupil count. All said and done, we're asking you to approve a December budget revision that is projecting now to contribute back to fund balance $461,447.
Does anyone have any questions for Ginger regarding this resolution that we'll be doing for the budget modification amendment? Is there a motion to accept this recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
So it's Brandon and Malene. Are there any further questions? John, roll call, please.
William Pangle,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman,
Yes.
Brenda McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich, yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Motorkirk.
Yes. Unanimous approval of that, and thank you once again to the finance team for all of the work that you've done pulling this together. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's 2020 evaluation. This is the time of the year we do an evaluation of the superintendent. Superintendent has the right to do that in closed session, of which we did at our last board meeting, that the minutes that we just approved. And so it was actually a conversation that goes on all year round. The superintendent presents reports and information that ties in and feeds the report that we do our analysis from. And the board has come to some conclusions. And so this is our opportunity as the board to share some of our conclusions with the greater public. At this time, what we would like to do is I have a letter that the board will be publicly releasing based on our evaluation of Superintendent Verliger. I'm going to take some time and read that for everyone so we can all understand better the process and what our determination is. Again, this is going to be publicly released over the next, after we approve this, but I am going to read this. Let me get a bit larger. The Board of Education of Mount Pleasant Public Schools is pleased to announce that the 2020 performance evaluation rating for Superintendent Jen Verliger is effective. The board determined that this effective rating is appropriate. It reflects Superintendent Verliger's hard work and dedication toward the goals and high standards of our district and the expectations of our community. The board has been very pleased with the work of Superintendent Verliger since she began leading our district as a superintendent in May of 2017. The board is especially pleased with how Superintendent Verliger has navigated the district through this extremely challenging pandemic. The Mount Pleasant Public Schools Board of Education has been continuously evaluating the job performance of Superintendent Verliger over the past 12 months. This November, the board was provided a cumulative report review. To evaluate and to set the superintendent's performance rating, the board was trained in and utilizes the state of Michigan approved Michigan Association of School Boards comprehensive superintendent evaluation process. The superintendent continually shares evidence of her performance and discusses this progress with the board throughout the year. In this process, the board assesses 7 key areas which are weighted. The board monitors the superintendent's work and she provides evidence in support of that work in the following areas: governance and board relations, community relations, district staff relations, district business and finance, and district instructional leadership. These 5 areas constitute 50% of the evaluation. The other 50% of the evaluation involved the board's assessment of her work to heighten Mount Pleasant Public Schools students' academic growth based on the state's standardized tests. 40% of the evaluation total, and the progress toward district-wide goals, which is 10% of the total. The board would like to share that due to the pandemic, the academic performance data that the state requires the district to use in the evaluation was unavailable because the state canceled the MPPS. However, the state still requires us to include this in the evaluation. This impacted the superintendent's final score in her evaluation. Key highlights that the board would like to note: Superintendent Verliger's superior leadership through the pandemic that began in March and has extended through December. Superintendent Verliger was able to guide the district to pivot the entire district virtually within weeks. She also exhibited great leadership in the support of the community's needs by leading the development of multiple models of education delivery that best supported each grade level. Superintendent Verliger then worked to update each grade level to better support the staff and students when more was discovered as we moved throughout the fall. Superintendent Verliger's leadership in restructuring the budget of the district in the spring when the financial structures funding public education were collapsing. She garnered support and implemented a significantly trimmed budget in the last months of the school year. Then, when the state raised the funding with the CARE Act funds, she and her team realigned the budget again and carried through on reinstating concessions as promised. Superintendent Verliger's leadership in finalizing the multi-year bond-supported construction projects across the entire district within budget and with a significant positive impact on our students and staff. The district's 2021 goals established with the superintendent are a continuation of last year's goals, many which were necessarily delayed by the pandemic. These goals are: the first, continue to implement the 2020-2025 strategic plan for Mount Pleasant Public Schools. 2, all students at Mount Pleasant Public Schools will be college or career ready as determined by the Michigan Department of Education in mathematics, science, social studies, reading, and writing. 3, continue to increase the percentage of students who meet their academic growth targets above 81%. 4, update and implement 5-year plans for the following district areas: technologies, facilities, and a new focus on marketing and promotion. The board would like to recognize the entire Mount Pleasant Public Schools education team. We know that these achievements could not have happened if not for the hard and dedicated work of this amazing team, which includes administrators, teachers, support staff, bus drivers, maintenance employees, and most importantly, the students. The board encourages Superintendent Verliger to continue to address the budgetary, relational, and collaborative needs of the district while leading Mount Pleasant Public Schools toward higher academic achievement for all our students. And to continue to work with our community to sustain an environment that empowers excellence. Go Oilers, the Board of Education of Mount Pleasant Public Schools. So the board is very pleased overall with Jen's performance and the work that she's been doing especially during these extremely challenging times. And so we would like to, first, I would like to entertain a motion to accept that letter as what the board will be publicly stating out to the public.
So moved.
Second.
So John moved and Amy seconded. Are there any further questions or comments? Not hearing any. John, roll call, please.
William Pankel,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Stegman,
Yes.
Brandon McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich, yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Oderker.
Yes. Motion approved, and we'll finalize that letter and we will get that out to the public. Also in conversation that we had with Ms. Verliger was what to do about her contract. This is the time that her contract is often discussed based on her performance review, and the board and Superintendent Verliger came to some conclusions that we would like to share and to talk about as a board in public at this time. The first in general is that we will be offering to extend Jen Verliger's contract for 3 more years. So her contract was scheduled to terminate on the June 30th, 2022, which is the end of next school year. And so we are going to be extending the contract to June 30th, 2025, which is a 3-year extension. And the other things that we had discussed and we had a conversation about, and we would like to further discuss in public now with the board, is structuring a wage increase structure that is based on step longevity scales similar to the rest of the administrators. So the idea here would be after certain key points in the longevity of the superintendent in the superintendent's role, there would be preset wage increases that would occur in that following year. And those wage increases would be at the following the 5th year, the superintendent would get a $3,641 wage increase. After the 10th year as superintendent, it would be a $5,241 wage increase. After the 15th year as superintendent, it would be $7,366 wage increase. And after the 20th year as superintendent, $8,739 wage increase. Again, this mirrors what the administrators across the rest of the district have built into their contracts, and we thought it was appropriate for the superintendent to have similar language built into her contract. And again, with a lot of hope and vision that she will be around for the 20 years at this time. Does any board members have any comments? Was this a good reflection of what we had discussed? Or does any board member have any other thoughts regarding the modification or the amendment to the superintendent's contract?
No, this reflects exactly what we discussed. I think you did an excellent job presenting it, and thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments? So I'd like to entertain a motion to take that language and finalize it into the contract, and so we can get it signed for Ms. Verliger. Is there a motion to accept that extension of the amendment to her employment contract?
So moved.
Second.
I think that was Sheila and Amy was the second. Are there any further questions? Roll call, please, John.
William Pinkel.
Yes.
Amy Bond.
Yes.
Courtney Stegman.
Yes.
Brendan McQueen.
Yes.
John Mazurkovich. Yes. Sheila Murphy.
Yes.
Tim Odeker.
Yes, motion unanimously approved. Again, Jen, thank you. You've worked very hard, and this has been an extremely challenging time. Thank you, and please thank your team. I'm very proud to be a part of this district from what we do.
Absolutely, and I just want to thank you all very much for all the time you spent with me with going through that. I really appreciate it.
The next item on a new business is the Mpspa letter of agreement. Jen.
In your packet this evening, you have a memo from me recommending the approval of a letter of agreement with the Mount Pleasant Support Personnel Association. If you remember, their contract expired on June 30th of 2020. And at that time, we did a 6-month extension to get us to December 31st. We have met with them several times and we are making progress. So today we're just asking for a 60-day extension to March 1st of 2021. That does align with the proposed board meeting. So we believe we'd be able to come to you with that. Right now we've been working on, they have a new employee group that's accreting into their membership, and we're working on just some overall pieces of their master agreement. So we believe we'll be able to accomplish all that in the next 60 days.
Are there any questions for Jen regarding the MPSPA contract extension. So is there a motion to accept the recommendation to address the extension of the master contract agreement of the MPSPA, which is set to expire December 31st to March 1st, 2021?
So moved.
So moved. Second, Sheila?
So John and then Sheila. Are there any further questions? Roll call, please, John.
Lillian Pangle,
Yes.
Amy Bond,
Yes.
Courtney Steckman,
Yes.
Brandon McQueen,
Yes.
John Mazurkovich. Yes. Sheila Murphy,
Yes.
Tim Odeker.
Yes. Motion approved. Now, the next item on the agenda is the extended COVID-19 learning plan as required by law. Jen.
Yeah, so I will pull up our PowerPoint. If this works here. Just give me one quick second. There we go. Okay. So again, we're going to look at the reconfirmation meeting information first, and then we'll look at basically the return to school plan. I'll give you an update on where we are, and then we'll have the opportunity for public comment. And I'll get into this a little bit more as we move through the presentation, but I don't believe there's any action that needs to happen this evening. You all may feel differently, and certainly we could discuss that, but I don't have any sort of recommendation for any action at this point. So again, we're looking at our extended COVID-19 learning plan, and that was created by the Return to Learn legislation that was passed this summer. We're meeting all the requirements to maintain compliance with the state of Michigan and with MDE. The plan has three basic parts: to establish and review our educational goals and our extended learning plan in the fall, to hold progress report meetings looking at benchmark data. So we'll be doing the first of those meetings in January, and then we'll have another one prior to the end of the school year. And then finally to hold monthly reconfirmation meetings. And this is our third of that meeting. So this evening, we're going to be looking at data from PowerSchool over the last 4 weeks. And since this is an entirely new process, every time that we go through this process, every time we do this, we learn a little bit more, we get a little bit better, and the information, I think, is better. Right now, our teachers are entering the data weekly, and they have until Wednesday of the next week to enter the data into the system. It is rather cumbersome, so we're working with our teachers to make sure that this can be as easy as possible. So the one thing that's different about this report is this is the first report that we've looked at where all of our students are in virtual instruction. And I'll break that down for you here a little bit more once I pull up the report. So basically this is the meeting. Again, we're reconfirming how instruction is going to be delivered during the 2021 school year. We're recording any public comments from parents or guardians on the learning plan. So after this evening, I'll record the names of any comments that we receive at the board meeting. We're looking tonight at the reconfirmation period from November 16th through last Friday, December 11th. And this is being reviewed at a Board of Education meeting that's held remotely today. So as we go through the levels of our plan, each level has very specific information regarding the variety of programs that we're offering students, whether that be face-to-face, in a cohort model, face-to-face through a hybrid model, virtual instruction, and all those kinds of things. But to reflect the change in our programming, I added the bolded statement under each level that states for the weeks of November 16th, 2020 through January 8th, 2021, all students will transition for virtual instruction due to a rise of COVID-related situations in our community. So that is where our extended learning plan is currently. We are currently in virtual instruction, which of course you all know that. Again, this is the section where I would look at recording the names of anyone that provides public comment this evening. And then we go into our two-way interaction rates. So in previous board meetings, you'll remember this column to the far right that's not 100% remote. That is for our students that are typically in a face-to-face environment. Because we have moved to a full virtual environment, we don't have any students to report in that category, which also means that our 100% remote category and our all students category will be the same because that's where everyone is. So these are rates for our DK2 buildings in the 90th percentile. This week here is a little bit lower, the week ending December 11th. Part of that is a timing issue. If you remember, our teachers have until the next Wednesday to put their 2A communications in. So we will update that information this Wednesday. The next session, we're looking at our 3rd through 5th grade students. And you can see where our numbers dipped slightly. November 24th was that short week where we only were in school 2 days due to the Thanksgiving break. And then we've picked back up a little bit. Next, looking at our middle school rates for the week ending November 20th and the Thanksgiving week ending November 24th, and then moving in. Finally, then we look at our 2A interaction rates for 9th through 12th grade students. This does include students that attend Mount Pleasant High School and the Gratiot Isabella Technical Education Center. So you can see again where we had a higher participation. The week ending November 20th was the first week of the 2nd trimester. Then we look at Thanksgiving. And then we see quite a dip here for this week of December 11th. I did meet with the high school administrators about that dip today. And again, I really believe it's a timing issue. Although there's still a significant room for improvement there. When we looked at our November report, the data that we looked at that week right after the weekend ended, we were in the 55 percentile. And we went back and pulled those rates today. We're close to 70%. So it is just a timing issue of our teachers having the time to put the data into the system. But we definitely know that there's room for improvement there. If I go back then to my presentation, we'll talk about the return to school plan update. And again, I think it's really important to continue reiterating the general information that safety is our top priority, regardless of if we are virtual or if we're face-to-face. Keeping our staff and students safe is our biggest priority. We are still following all of our COVID protocols, although our buildings may not have students in them for instruction. We certainly still have staff and we still have visitors in our buildings. So all of our buildings are following all of our COVID protocols. We're offering additional supports for at-risk and special education students. Our goal is always smaller class sizes. Our parents are our partners through this process. And we're looking at our instructional models, and we believe they are working when we can return face-to-face. So as you remember, in November, we had a change in the direction based on the increased COVID cases in our school and in our community at large. It was a rather sharp increase over one weekend. And I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware. On our website, this link takes you right to our website where we're reporting all of our cases. So you can click here and see a snapshot for any day regarding our current COVID cases. I do still continue to report all of our cases, although we are in virtual instruction. And I know that might seem a little awkward when I'm reporting student cases for students that haven't been in a school building for several weeks. But I believe that is what we need to do in order to continue to look at the data to determine what our next best steps are. Again, we still have the same concerns that we talked about in November. Many staff and students are quarantined due to being close contacts, and we continue to see a jump in positive cases. Again, current recommendations from the Central Michigan District Health Department. Number one, they recommend keeping all students in school, but especially our youngest students, as long as possible. They believe that we should move to virtual instruction if COVID becomes disruptive to your daily operations. So that would be based on staff shortages, based on the amount of the number of teachers or staff members that are quarantined. If that caused such an impact that we couldn't operate in the manner that we typically would, they recommend moving to virtual instruction. In our last meeting last week, they said that they have not seen the post-Thanksgiving spike in cases that they thought they would. They do believe that our local numbers have plateaued. And when I say local, I mean Isabella County and the 6 counties that the Central Michigan District Health Department cover. So they are seeing a plateau rather than a spike in cases. But the bottom line is that the overall number of cases is still too high for them to be comfortable. What does too high look like? I thought I would compare for you this evening, looking at November 16th as compared to today, November 14th. You will see that as far as positive cases go, we are not very different. At that time, we had 8 active student cases. Today, we have 7 active student cases. A month ago, we had 7 active staff cases, and today we have 8 active staff cases. Where you see the big difference is the quarantine, right? Because when our students are together, when our staff is together, they're testing positive, they're around their colleagues, they're around their friends, and therefore their close contacts are contacts within our school building. So I think it's especially striking to look at the large number of students that we had quarantined back in November as compared to only 26 students in quarantine today. And then staff, 47 staff members that we're trying to cover for in a variety of different areas, and today only 18 members in quarantine. If we had maintained face-to-face instruction, I am certain that our numbers of staff and students in quarantine would be significantly higher. Last week, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services extended their epidemic orders. Those orders now go through December 20th. They do close all high schools for face-to-face instruction. They delay all athletic events, and they really focus on social pods and how that can help with social distancing, and then also, what's open and what's closed right now, and how this pause is helping to save lives. They do attribute the lack of the increase after Thanksgiving to some of the tactics being used through this pause. So as you know, the board has already approved, first of all, winter break, which begins on Friday. The first week back after winter break, the week of January 4th, we will be virtual for all students, DK through 12. And then our hope would be to return to face-to-face instruction starting the week of January 11th. If we're able to do that, we would go back to a hybrid model at the high school, a cohorted model at the middle school, face-to-face instruction 5 days a week at our elementary buildings, and certainly the Oilers Online program available for any student. In the COVID world, I believe that the time from now until January 4th is filled with so many unknowns that I don't want to really speculate this evening. As I stated earlier, we do have another board meeting on January 4th. So I thought at that meeting we would be able to share the data that we have at that point. I don't know if we'll have another predicted spike from the holiday season and if that will actually happen or not. But I feel like making a decision today based on 3 weeks of time where so much can change really isn't putting our best foot forward. So as always, our administrative leadership team is here to answer any questions that you might have. And I'll stop the screen so we can move into questions and answers.
Jen, for the two-way contact rate, interaction rates, I just noticed the high school is just substantially lower than everyone else. Is that just due to a lot more free will on the students' part? Or do you have any idea as to why it would be substantially lower?
I think there are a lot of things happening there. I do think it's the idea of probably teenagers being home alone, not attending meets, their live meets with their teachers and that sort of thing. I absolutely do not think it is because of teachers not trying and not reaching out, but somehow we're missing the mark, right? We're not getting them. We're not connecting with them. So the high school student support team has done a really good job of reaching out to students to find out what's going on. Oftentimes students are attending meets but not turning in assignments, or not attending meets and turning in assignments. So they're getting half but not all. And so I really think I am concerned about our high school students, and that's one of the biggest populations that I think needs to be back in school. But if you look at our numbers, that's where we're also having the most positive cases of students right now. So, we have to weigh the pros and cons with that. But I met with the high school staff this morning, like I talked about, and they were really going to focus on what isn't happening with two-way communication and how, we can move forward so that we can increase that mark. I believe I also shared with you last time, Jeff Platty spends a lot of time focused on failures of students and how many students aren't passing courses. He believes, based on the first trimester data, that the same number of students that didn't pass courses, the number is the same from last year to this year, but the increase that he's seeing is that those same students are failing multiple courses. Where maybe last year a student might only fail 1 or 2 classes, now that same student is failing 4 to 5 classes. So that's definitely concerning, and that's really what they've been focused on the first couple of weeks of this trimester, is following up with those students who did not pass their courses during the first try.
So are we using a different process for two-way interactions at each level, or is it pretty consistent across all grades?
So it's not a different process, and in fact, what counts as two-way communication is consistent, because this is how we are this is how we are being assessed as far as pupil accounting goes. So what counts as a two-way communication is the same if you're a kindergarten student or you're a 10th grade student. So that doesn't change at all. I just think the ability to connect with those students is a little bit more challenging for our teachers.
I was curious if they have a different method of that, or if they're using different tools, or if they're getting more confused, or I think it's being high schoolers personally, but
yeah. I mean, I think that's part of it, but certainly our high school staff is savvy enough to do things like reach out to students via text. They use Remind, they use those things where maybe at the elementary level, a lot of that communication is focused on parents. At the high school, they can communicate directly with our students using those methods. And so our teachers are definitely tech savvy and do that. And they have the daily attendance or check-in activities that oftentimes aren't content related. So they're more of that social emotional check, which we know is what our students really need, is they need to have that sense of camaraderie and belongingness with their students, or with their classmates and with their teachers. So it's definitely a struggle. And when you look at the middle school numbers, I feel like they're really connecting with students. And I think the high school is too. It's just so different with the students' response and how they're, receiving that.
Thank you.
I do have a follow-up to John's question. Do we know what our counseling center is doing at the high school? Because I know the middle school numbers didn't used to be quite as high, but they've worked really hard with the counseling center to engage the students in that mental kind of general health. And so I wondered if that was the case in the high school, or maybe not quite yet.
Yeah, so they have a Google Classroom set up also. They do different meets that are focused on social emotional kinds of things, but it is more of an individual approach, where I think the middle school has been so successful with the group approach right now, right? And so again, I don't know if that's necessarily age appropriate, that they're feeling like at the high school level that individual approach is better, but they're definitely meeting with students and working with students. They're providing resources to them as well. But you are right, we've had a huge success at the middle school and also in our 3-5 buildings with those social emotional connections and needs. So I know they'll continue that. They collaborate really well.
I wondered because I have talked to several high school families who didn't know of these services.
Okay.
And so I wonder if some of it is communication. And even though I agree that engaging the students directly at that age seems appropriate, maybe looping in the parents with that communication.
Sure.
The parents I talked to definitely did not know.
Sure.
And not having a high schooler in the system, I had no idea.
Yeah.
The other question I had kind of related to this, I didn't know, I have a vague memory of the report that you showed at the beginning that we have to submit to the state. And I remember that there was a lot of categories that were added, including that social emotional support. And I wondered if some of the numbers, like the success we're having at the middle school or 3 through 5, would be reported in that. Is that something? I mean, I don't know.
I'm not sure what report not this one that we just looked at tonight. It's a different.
Yeah, it's not there, right?
Okay. Okay.
And so at the beginning of the year when we talked about that report, and I can pull it up, was all the different categories that we thought would be a good thing to look at. And I didn't know if it included that kind of social emotional support that we're providing, and if so, if we should include it, because I do think it's quite amazing what they're managing to do, and finding a way to capture that, right? How many students are engaging in these activities, and maybe that's where we could see where it's working well and where they need additional support.
So I think what you're referring to, we talked about what wasn't required of us and what data we thought would be helpful, and that's exactly right.
I think you're right. Yep.
So yeah, we can definitely do that, and maybe I could even invite some representatives from our counseling staff to our next board meeting to talk a little bit more about the support they have been offering.
I think that'd be great. I mean, I don't want to give them extra work at this point. I'm sure that generates more, but for the community to hear, I think that would be fantastic.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions from Jen from the board? Well, Jen, now we'll punt it out to the public.
Yes. Yeah, make sure I was in the right spot. Yeah, so if there are public attendees on the meeting this evening that would like to make comment to the board, please raise your virtual hand and I will unmute your microphone so you are able to talk. So again, if there is anyone that would like to speak to the board this evening, you can find your virtual hand in your tools and raise your virtual hand if you'd like to make comment. I don't see any hands that are raised, Tim.
Okay, thank you. That is everything under that item under the agenda. Now we actually go on to the next item on the agenda, which is any citizen who wishes to address any board agenda item or non-agenda item now has the opportunity to reach out to the board. Jen, I see Ms. Pat has a hand up.
Pat, are you there? Pat, can you hear me? Pat, can you hear me? I don't know if Pat is having technical difficulties. She's unmuted. Pat, are you there? Let me try one more time. Pat, can you hear us? Pat, can you hear us?
Our apologies, Pat. Hopefully, one thing you have an option is if you'd like to send the board an email, that would be great. We'll see if, I don't know what we can do. So she took her hand down. That's all I see, Jen. Do you see anyone else?
Yeah, there's not anyone at this time that has their hand up.
Okay, we will go on to the next item on the agenda, which is board discussion. Is there anything that the board would like to offer as part of the board meeting?
Hey, Tim.
Go ahead, Brandon.
So, yeah, I guess I just kind of wanted to say thank you to everybody. It's been a crazy ride for the last 11 years, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to step up and be a part of the community. And I thank you, everybody, for the support. There's one thing that I had always kind of intended on bringing up when I got closer to the end of my time, which obviously are with the pandemic going on right now. I don't think we can take too much time and resources to put towards it, but I still would like to just ask that, you know, if things calm down and you guys have the ability to put a little bit extra on your plate, I think it would be, I think it would mean a lot to the former students and teachers, and including myself, of Oasis Alternative High School, if maybe we had some sort of official retirement for it when we closed down Oasis and went to the online way program. It kind of just carried the name over, but I think everybody kind of agrees that it's completely different programs. I think that would mean a lot to a lot of people, including me. The second thing I wanted to say was, you know, is you can never predict the future, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I would just hope that the board can prioritize keeping the balanced calendar going forward. I know that running on our first year at the same time as a pandemic didn't do us any favors, but I'd hate to see that program killed when I think it could be a real game changer for our community. And after that, I just, you know, Tim, Jen, Deb, everybody, really enjoyed getting to know you. Wow. I really enjoyed getting to know all you guys, and I hate that I didn't get to see you guys in person as it came to an end, but just want to take care and keep up the good work.
Brendan, thank you. So I've known you for a long time. First of all, you were a brave man to step up 11 years ago and enter and be a voice for a population that often didn't have a voice. And you did it with great eloquence. It has been an honor to know you, and it's been great pride that I can say you are my friend, and working with you has been amazing. So thank you for being a voice of a population that we often don't hear, and for everything that you've done for the district. I've really enjoyed our time together. Thank you. And you know, in a couple of years, you can always run again.
I'd like to say thank you as well. I've really enjoyed the last couple of years filling in. As always, if needed again, let me know. I'm sure I can talk my wife into letting me do it again.
John, thank you.
It's been this is a great group of people to work with. The staff, faculty, the staff, everyone at the district is just incredible. Thank you.
Brandon,
We
I'm
always-
just gonna say, I'm gonna really miss you. You have a point of view unlike anyone else. You think outside of the box, and you have had a tremendous impact on me. And I just wanted to let you know, I truly will miss you. And John, you've been a really good board member to have. You've brought a lot to the board, and we'll miss you on the board, but I will see you down the road. So take care, you guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I mean, and actually, thank you to all the board members in this kind of wrapping up the calendar year period. It's been very challenging on all of us, and you've done it with great eloquence, and you've carried your voice and shared your voice, and I appreciate that, because that's how the board can do the great things. Amy sent around a rather disturbing video of a board meeting that went awry, and I was watching that, just thinking, that is so not who we are. And thank you for being willing to share your voice. Thank you for being willing to stand up for our children in our community and our community. And to Jen and to Linda and to Ginger and to Deb and the rest of central office and all of the administrators and teachers and bus drivers and parapros, the lift that you guys have done over this since March is just phenomenal. And don't think that people do not notice that. People notice. That makes people want to have their children near you, and that says a lot. And that is a powerful thing that Mount Pleasant Public Schools has. I feel safe. I've always felt safe with every educator, because I know they're committed to my child, and I know they're committed to my community. So thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Take some time and enjoy what's important, which is our families, right? It's going to be a little different this year, but know that it's important. And let our students know that we care about them, and we're still thinking about them during the holidays, and that things are moving forward, and we're there. So thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, and get some rest.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Well, that being everything before the board, ladies and gentlemen, I will call that a meeting and the end of the calendar year. I will see everyone on January 4th. Just as a reminder, at this point, it's face-to-face. However, there's hopes that it could be virtual. We will let you know when we know. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Oh, John's gone.